What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and I'm going to be doing a Metalfoes deck profile. So I'm really excited for you guys because this deck is an extremely fun pendulum deck that can summon out all sorts of incredible fusion monsters to your side of the field to help you go in for game. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like in your name script during a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron, along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Metalfoes Melcaster. Melcaster is a great 3-of in the deck that has the ability that if this card on the field is destroyed by battle or by card effect, then you can add a face-up Metalfoes Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, except another copy of this card. But you can't activate it or cards with the same name or place it in the Pendulum zone for the rest of the turn, except by card effect. This card is a pretty good 3-of in the deck because it helps you get into all sorts of plays in the deck later on in the game, and it's just a really good monster sitting at 2,000 attack points and 2,500 defense points. Now, all of your Metalfoes monsters in the main deck actually share the exact same pendulum scale effect, that once per turn you can target one other face-up card that you control and destroy it, and if you do, set a Metalfoes spell or trap directly from your deck to your side of the field, which is a really good effect because you have some really powerhouse spells and traps in this deck that can help you fusion summon and even get some crazy plays rolling. We then play 3 copies of Bismugear. Bismugear is a good 3-of in the deck because it has the ability, if this card on the field is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can add a Metalfoes monster from your deck to your hand during the end phase of this turn, basically being the Scarm of the deck, which is a really good effect to be able to get you that search during the end phase to help you go in for game during the following turn. We then play 3 copies of Metalfoes Volflame. Volflame is a really good card to summon to your side of the field because it does have 2,400 attack points and it is a scale 8, which can help you go in for all sorts of different pendulum plays. We then play 3 copies of Gold Driver. Gold Driver is a really good card in the deck because it does have 1,900 attack points, so this card is a definite 3-of in the deck to help you go in for game and pendulum summon out a really powerful monster. We then play 2 copies of Silverad. Silverad is a really good 2-of in the deck as well because it has 1,700 attack, but you really don't need 3 copies of this card because you can start breaking with the normal monsters, which is why I just play 2 copies of this card and 2 copies of Steelin. Steelin is a good 2-of as well because you really don't need a 3rd copy of it because it does have 0 attack points, but it's a great card to throw in the pendulum scale. We then play a single copy of Astrograph Sorcerer. Astrograph Sorcerer is insanely good in this deck because it has the ability that if a card you control is destroyed by battle or by card effect, then you can special summon this card from your hand and then choose a monster in your graveyard extra deck or that's banished that was destroyed this turn and add a monster with the same name from your deck to your hand, which is a really powerful effect, especially with your Metalfoes sharing that ability that you can target one of their face-up card that you control and destroy it, and if you do, set a Metalfoes spell or trap directly from your deck because that combos extremely well with your copy of Astrograph to be able to get his effect off to special summon himself to your side of the field and then get you another card that was popped, which is really, really cool. We then play 3 copies of Magical Adductor. This card is a really good 3-of in the deck because it has a good pendulum scale effect that each time a spell card is activated, you can place a spell counter on this card and when that spell card resolves. And then once per turn, you can remove 3 spell counters from this card to add a pendulum monster from your deck to your hand, which is a pretty good effect because we're going to be activating a lot of spell cards in this deck. We then play 3 copies of Bow Baboon. Bow Baboon is a really neat card in the deck because if this card is normal or special summoned, you can draw a card and then place a card from your hand on either the top or the bottom of your deck, which can help you get the exact scale that you need by drawing that extra card and getting rid of a scale that you really don't need. And if this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can special summon any number of Bow Baboons from your deck, which is pretty good because if you only draw 1 copy of this card, you can normal summon it to your side of the field, draw 1, and then put 1 back on the bottom of the deck, and then use any of your Metalfoes monsters to pop this card to get you a special summon of 2, which is really cool. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom to round out the monsters. This card is just a great hand trap overall in the deck to be able to stop the opponent from touching the deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Full Metalfoes Fusion. Now this is a card that I actually considered playing as a 2-of in the deck, because basically it's a quick play polymerization for your Metalfoes monsters. This card is a really good 1-of in the deck, but I really kind of want to find room for a second copy of this card, and I did consider bumping the deck up to 41 to play an extra copy of this card. So it is something to think about as you're building this deck. We then play a single copy of Metalfoes Fusion. Metalfoes Fusion is a good 1-of in the deck, because it lets you fusion summon a Metalfoes fusion monster from your extract using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. And if this card's in the graveyard, you can shuffle it into the deck and then draw a card. So this card is only really needed as a 1-of because you can use it over and over again. We then play a single copy of Metalfoes Fusion. This card is a really good 1-of in the deck as well, but lets you fusion summon a Metalfoes fusion monster from your extract by using one monster from each your hand, field, and or face up from your extract as fusion material. And you can only activate one of this card per turn. I wouldn't play any more than a single copy of this card because it is searchable, but it's still a really good 1-of in the deck, but I don't like how specific it is with where you have to use your fusion materials. We then play 3 copies of Summoner's Art. Summoner's Art is a really good card in this deck because it lets us add a level 5 or higher normal monster from your deck to your hand. So this card is a really good 3-of in the deck to be able to grab your copies of Volflame directly from the deck to your hand. We then play 3 copies of Super Poly. Super Poly is insanely good in this deck because we have so many Super Poly targets with our Metalfoes monsters. So this card can help you out any card that your opponent has on the field that's a monster. So this card comes in very handy in the deck to be able to fusion summon away really powerful monsters that your opponent has while just getting rid of a normal monster on our field that we can just pendulum summon back to the field later on. This card is really good in this deck. We then play 3 copies of E-Telly. E-Telly is really good in the deck as well because you are playing so many psychic monsters in this deck. So this card can help you get monsters out on your side of the field to use as fusion plays and to thin the deck out a little bit. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of Metalfoes Counter. Metalfoes Counter is a good 1-of in the deck that if a card you control is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can special summon out a Metalfoes monster from your deck. And then during either player's turn, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card to add a face-up Metalfoes pendulum monster from your extract to your hand, which is really good to be able to bypass having to summon into the extra monster zone. We then play a single copy of Metalfoes Combination. Combination is a good 1-of in the deck. I did consider playing 2 copies of this card as well, but it has the ability that once per turn, if a fusion monster is fusion summoned, then you can target a Metalfoes monster in your graveyard with a lower level than that fusion monster and special summon it. And if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add a Metalfoes monster from your deck to your hand, which is a really good effect to be able to pop this card to be able to add a Metalfoes monster from your deck to your hand, which is a crazy powerful effect to just get that search while also setting a Metalfoes spell or trap to your field. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Metalfoes Mytherium. This card is a really good 2-of in the deck that has the ability that just takes a Metalfoes monster plus any pendulum monster, so you can easily use a Super Poly to summon this card. It has the ability that you get to target 2 Metalfoes cards in your graveyard and 1 card on the field, and shuffle the targets in from the graveyard in the deck, and if you do, return the target on the field to the hand, which is really good because it bounces a card back from your opponent's side of the field back into their hand. You can only use the effect of this card once per turn, and if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can special summon out a Metalfoes pendulum monster from your graveyard or face up from your extract, which is a pretty good effect. We then play a single copy of Full Metalfoes Alcahest. Alcahest is one of my favorite cards in the entire deck because it's such a unique monster with the ability that it just takes a Metalfoes monster plus a normal monster to summon this card, and it must be fusion summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. And once per turn, during your opponent's turn, you can target an effect monster on the field and equip that target to this card, and this is a quick effect, which is a really powerful effect. And this card gains defense equal to the combined original defense of monsters equipped to this card by this effect, and you can only use monsters that you control equipped to this card you control as fusion material as well for the fusion summon of a Metalfoes Metalfoes fusion monster that lists them as material. This card is insanely good because this card is basically a relinquished in fusion form, which is really insane. We then play a single copy of Orcal. Orcal is a neat card in the deck because it takes 2 Metalfoes monsters, and if a Metalfoes monster you control attacks a defense position monster, you get to do double piercing damage to your opponent. And if this card is sent from the field to the grave, you get to target 1 card on the field and destroy it. So this card is a really good one-of in the deck to get those really good plays. We then play a single copy of Metalfoes Crimsonite. Crimsonite is a good super poly target because it takes a Metalfoes monster plus 2 monsters with 3,000 or less attack. So this card is an insane super poly target that you can use any of your opponent's monsters that have less than 3,000 attack, but you have to use 2 of them. So this card is a great one-of in the extract. We then play just a single copy of the level 5 Metalfoes monster. This card is really good because it does require just a 2,500 or less attack point monster, plus a Metalfoes monster to make this card, so it's a good super poly target. We then play a single copy of Azorlas. Azorlas is a good one-of in the deck because it does require a fusion monster plus a Metalfoes to make this card, but it has a kind of neat effects because it has the ability that if a face-up Metalfoes cards you control is destroyed by a card effect except during the damage step, you can target 1 face-up card on the field and destroy it, which is really a good effect. It also has the ability that if its monster effect is if this card is special summoned from the extract, you can target 1 card your opponent controls and shuffle 2 face-up pendulum monsters from your extract into the deck, and if you do, destroy that card, and you can only use this card once per turn, and if this card in the monster zone is destroyed, then you can place this card in your pendulum zone, which is pretty good because it is a scale 8. We then play a single copy of Starving Venom to round out the fusion monsters. This card is really good in the deck because it's a good super poly target. Just in case these don't meet their requirements, you do have the copy of Starving Venom to get rid of dark monsters. We then play a single copy of Access Code to be able to pop cards on the field, 1 copy of Appaloosa. Appaloosa is just really good in the deck because it does give you those additional monster negates on the field, so this card is a great one-of in the deck. 1 copy of Draco Masters of the Tenyi. This is actually a really good personal tech in the deck because it has the ability that takes 2+ monsters, including a Link monster, but all of its arrows are downward arrows, which is really good. It also has crazy good effects with your normal monsters because it has the ability that it can't be destroyed by battle with an effect monster, and if you control no other effect monsters, then you can destroy effect monsters your opponent controls up to the number of non-effect monsters that you control and or in your graveyard. So this card is a definite one-of in this deck to help you go in for all sorts of different plays, pop the field, and use all 3 of those downwards arrows to pendulum summon into. We then play a single copy of Selene. Selene is super easy to summon in this deck because you can go into Access Code Talker with this card, so it's a really good one-of. 1 copy of Cross Sheep. Cross Sheep is a good card as well because it takes basically 2 monsters with different names, and if you do fusion summon, you get to special summon a level 4 or lower monster from your graveyard, which is a really good effect. 1 copy of IP Masquerade because it lets us go in for our copy of Appaloosa during the opponent's turn by just using 2 monsters plus this card, which is really nice. And then finally, a single copy of Beyond the Pendulum. Now this card I'm actually a little bit on the fence about in this deck because it requires 2 effect monsters, including a pendulum monster. So you have to use your Bismugear or your Melcaster to go into this card, or one of the other cards like Astrograph Sorcerer to go into this card. But it's a really neat card because if this card is link summoned in the extra monster zone, you can pay 1,200 life points to add a pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. But for the rest of the turn, unless you pendulum summon after this card resolves, you cannot activate monster effects, and the effects of any cards in your pendulum zones are negated. And if 2 monsters with different original levels are pendulum summoned at the same time as the zones this card points to, you can target 2 cards on the field and destroy them, which is the really good effect about this card. Now, something I did consider playing in the deck over this card is a Nightmare Unicorn because you can use it with IP Masquerade to be able to go into it during the opponent's turn. So that is an option for you guys if you want to change it out. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to be able to play. If you guys have never played with Metalfoes, you definitely should if you're looking for a good pendulum deck because it's super fun to be able to play. Very easy to understand what it's trying to do because you're basically just trying to fusion summon and swarm the field. So anyways, guys, that's it for this one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of our notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.